Shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Waharakah Kodash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I honor you brothers out there in the highways and the byways, teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Now, what I want to do is I want to go into Ezekiel 37 and read from the Bible commentary from David Guzik. And it's just to show you that, these guys like Vocab Malone and the rest of these goofy Christians, they have a huge problem with our doctrine, our gospel. But the fact remains that our gospel, our doctrine, is what is actually written in the scriptures, beginning with the prophets. All right? What we teach can easily be read in Isaiah, in Ezekiel, in Jeremiah, Hosea, Malachi, you name the prophet, their teachings and their prophecies is harmonious with what we teach. The problem Christianity has is they have a doctrine and an agenda which is not harmonious with the prophets. And to that, add that it's also not harmonious with what was being taught in the New Testament writings, because we know that what was written in the New Testament was agreeable with that which was written in the Old. Like Paul was well versed in the law and the prophets, and he said himself, in the way which they call heresy, so worship I, according to the way of my fathers, believe in all things which are written in the law and the prophets. All right? The church of Berea, they searched the law and the prophets to see if the things that Paul was teaching was true. So the problem with Christianity is that when you search the law and the prophets for the doctrine that they teach, that God loves everyone and God's going to save everyone and heaven and hell and a whole host of BS that they teach, it's not there. But what you'll find is, like, when you actually go into these Bible commentaries, a lot of times when they're breaking down the Old Testament, they say what we say. It's unavoidable. So what's the problem? So I'm going to read through, start from verse 11, and we're going to see what David Guzik has to say in regards to what Ezekiel spoke of in chapter 37. Just know that chapter 37 of Ezekiel goes hand in hand with Revelation's the 21st chapter. So it's end time prophecy. So Ezekiel 37, it says here, these bones are the whole house of Israel. We might have supposed that Ezekiel understood that the bones in his vision represented his people, yet it might have surprised him when God revealed they represented the whole house of Israel, and not only those from the kingdom of Judah. The restoration would include those from the northern kingdom of Israel that fell to the Assyrians some 150 years earlier. And see, so again, when you deal with these goofy Christians and you fast forward to the times of the New Covenant writings, they refuse to acknowledge that the Jews who were of Judea not only did they not represent the entirety of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, because you had many Judah, Benjamin, and Levi who were scattered around Asia Minor and throughout the known world, all right, because of the Hellenistic period, who were being called Greeks. But you even had the bulk of the northern kingdom who were scattered throughout the four corners, even over to the Americas. And so the goofy Christians, they refuse to acknowledge that history to put the New Covenant writings into context. So that's why they can't understand how there could be a group of people who were alienated from them, who were being brought back into the fold, which is why in John the 11th chapter, it speaks about not saving that nation only, but also the sons of God, who were, the children of God, to be more accurate to what it says, the children of God who were scattered abroad. Well, the children of God who were scattered abroad would represent the northern kingdom, right? And the members of the southern kingdom who were scattered outside of Judea, who were not being recognized. as part of the nation anymore. All right? But here, David Guzik admits that even in the time of Ezekiel, there was this division. It says, our bones are dry, our hope is lost, and we ourselves are cut off. The house of Israel had reason to say this, both those from the south and the north. Their only hope for life and restoration was in the Most High. Our hope is lost. They were the words of despondency, born of the realization of the desolation produced by the divine reprobation. It was an accurate description, which is true. Our people been down bad. I will open your graves and cause you to come up. Doesn't that sound like a resurrection? All right, what did Yahushua come to do? To resurrect that which was dead. We shall be raised with him. The Lord came to bring life to the nation of Israel. He is the way, the truth, and the life. See, these prophecies that we're reading in Ezekiel, Yahushua is the one who's actually going to fulfill them. This is all about the ministry of Yahushua and its eventual conclusion. All right? I will open your graves and cause you to come up. The same message is communicated through a slightly different picture. Instead of bones being exposed, here they are buried in graves. The effect is the same. Life is brought to that which was dead. Right? The scripture tells you, he that wandereth out the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. Right? Yahushua came to give life to the nation, beginning with the elect. Cynics in Ezekiel's audience might have assumed a sinister motive, perhaps to rob the tombs or to desecrate the remains, but common practices in the ancient Near East. But now, the Heavenly Father poses as a tomb robber like no other. The treasure he is after is the bodies of his people, whom he will raise from the grave. So his people, again, they have to acknowledge that the subject matter is not all people, but his people, the Israelites, which is what we teach. We teach that the subject of the Lord's salvation is the Israelites. And these men got a problem with it. All right? Again, bring you into the land of Israel. Now, the problem here is now the Christianity teaches a salvation which is something that you die or you go to a spirit realm. They teach you the goal is to die and go to heaven. No. The kingdom of heaven is going to be on earth. The kingdom is going to be on earth. The restoration and the salvation is something which is going to happen on earth to fulfill the promises, which is why it says, bring you into the land of Israel, which is why Holy Jerusalem is coming down from heaven onto earth in Revelation, the 21st chapter. Because it's about earth. It's not about being in heaven. But again, that whole dying and going to heaven and the kingdom of heaven being in the spirit realm can't be found in the prophecies. All the prophecies are regarding events which happen on earth. As promised many times in other places, such as Ezekiel 36:24 and 36:28, this revival of Israel also included their restoration to the land. Right? The meaning of our text is opened up by the context is most evidently, if words meaning anything, first, that there shall be a political restoration of the Jews. Now, here we go. Spurgeon in 1984 using that term Jews. The Bible's not saying there's going to be a political restoration of the Jews. And we're going to get to that. There's going to be a restoration of the nation of Israel, not the Jews. The Jews existed as a division of Israel. The Lord isn't bringing back or restoring the Jews, nor is he restoring Judea. He's going to restore the nation of Israel, which is all the 12 tribes. We're not going to be known as the Jews anymore, right? To their own land and to their own nationality. And then second, there is in the text and in the context a most plain declaration that there shall be a spiritual restoration, a conversion, in fact, of the tribes of Israel, right? So this guy's trying to mix in Jews. No, what it is going to be a complete restoration, both spiritually and physically and politically, of the nation of Israel. And that's going to be done through Yahushua, through the ministry, and through his inevitable salvation when he returns and gathers us together and establishes the new covenant within us, all right? Then you shall know that I am the Lord. God would powerfully reveal himself to Israel through this great work of revival and restoration to the land. Now, I don't need to tell you that that's not what's happened with them goofies, JOOs in the land over there right now. The Lord hasn't revealed himself to them. They were atheists. They don't even believe in the Most High. How did the Lord reveal himself to them? Come on, man. The reason the Lord's going to be revealed to us is because the salvation is going to be miraculous and great, with great power and signs and wonders through his Son. Let's keep going. I will put my spirit in you and you shall live. Right? The breath in the revived bones was more than the breath of human life. It was the spirit of the living God. This is another way of expressing the great promise found in the previous chapter, Ezekiel 36-27. Right? Now that goes into Yahweh Shai and the new covenant. All right? The Lord dwelling within us, man. Right? That goes into Revelation 21. That we shall not need the light by day, nor the sun by day, nor the moon by night. But the Lamb shall be the light thereof. Undeniably, Ezekiel 37:1-14 is about God's promised restoration of Israel. It is a restoration so wide and so deep that any fair examination of Israel history must confess that it has not happened yet. This means that it is yet to be fulfilled and will be fulfilled as part of God's plan for Israel in the very last days. Right? At the same time, this chapter teaches many principles on how God works in revival, and how God's servants should think and act relevant to such a mighty reviving work. If we put the modern servant of God in Ezekiel's place, we can now they start waffling on about some madness. We ain't trying to go into that. We're trying to stick to breaking down the prophecies. All right, one king under one king. Right, says, take a stick for yourself and write on it. At God's instruction, Ezekiel took 2 sticks. On one was written identifying it with Judah, and on the other was writing identifying it with Ephraim, that is Israel. The sticks represented the kingdom of the northern 10 tribes and the kingdom of the southern 2 tribes. In Ezekiel's day, the northern kingdom had been conquered and destroyed for some 150 years. Well, let's add to that. Pursuing to the Apocrypha, they had traveled to a land where no man had dwelt, which is the Sarif, which is the Americas. That's how our brothers ended up in the Americas, right? North, South, and Central America, right? That's where the Northern Kingdom went on ships, right? And we got plenty of videos going into that in particular. Yet God still considered them a people. That's why Yahweh Shai said, other sheep I have, which is not of this fold. It wasn't talking about heathens, actual heathens. It was talking about other Israelites, even though they were scattered among the nations. Incidentally, these same scriptures show the folly of the Anglo-Israel delusion with its position on 10 lost tribes. The prophets all recognized the northern tribes are still in existence and knew of no such error as lost tribes. Okay. Joseph, the stick of Ephraim. The tribe of Ephraim was the largest and most influential tribe of the northern kingdom. That's the so-called Puerto Ricans today. Several times in the Old Testament, the northern kingdom was called Ephraim. Joseph was the father of Ephraim and Manasseh, the 2 dominant tribes in the northern kingdom. Of these 2, Ephraim, the younger son, dominated the northern politics from the beginning. There's good history there. Jeroboam, the first king of the 10 tribes, was an Ephraimite. Joseph represents the 10 tribes in general. They were in the hand of Ephraim, and that is under the government of Jeroboam. And that's by Clark. Join them one to another. Either in appearance or in reality, Ezekiel was to join the 2 sticks together so they would become one in your hand. His clenched fist will thus grasp the place where the 2 sticks meet, and it will appear as if he is holding one long stick in the middle. Certainly, no base exists in this text for the strange Mormon. We ain't going to bother with the Mormons. But that's the tribes coming back together as one nation, which hasn't happened yet. All right? The meaning of the joined sticks. Will you not show us what you mean by these? Ezekiel's audience among the exiles were somewhat mystified by this acted out prophecy. Perhaps they wondered what God would have to do with the northern kingdom, Joseph and Ephraim, some 150 years after their seeming extinction. Make them one stick and they will be one in my hand. Generally, the meaning was plain. When God ultimately restored the tribes of Israel, he would restore them all again. So does it start making sense now who these other people outside of Judea that the gospel had to be teached to is? See, Christianity, they don't break this down in the churches. They don't really, here it is, this information is known by the scholars, but the average Christian does not understand this history. And they don't understand the gospels in the context of this history. So they don't understand that the Jews of Judea did not represent the entirety of the nation of Israel. You had Israelites that were scattered outside of that, who were swallowed up by the heathen, who were being called Gentiles and Greeks by the Judeans because of their apostasy. That which was previously divided in the days of Rehoboam would be restored as one. Taking away the deadly feud that have so long been between them, breaking down the partition wall, and I will once more bring them on all under one king and make them of one mind. See? Especially significant for the Israelites was the Most High's unequivocal declaration that all the descendants of Jacob were heirs of the covenant. Against the grain of centuries of history and deep-seated prejudices, the Most High extends his grace to the whole house of Israel, and not only Judah, but Joseph and his confederates as well. That's why James 1:1 says, James to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, greetings. This is why the gospel had to be preached throughout the four corners among all nations. Because the gospel was for the entirety of the descendants of Jacob, not just the Jews. That's why it is written, where will shall he go? Shall he go to the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? The dispersed. That's why Peter, in the book of Peter speaks about the scattered, the disperser, the diaspora. Right? That explains Cornelius, who was from Italy. Cornelius and his family and his brethren were Israelites, descendants of Jacob, right? The book of Matthews, I am sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel, right? That's Matthew 15:25. Right? It says the promise to gather, unify, and restore Israel. So why are these people acting like we're crazy? This is them summarizing what's happening, what's being foretold. Gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. The restoration after the Babylonian exile was only a shadow of this promise. So this is the Bible scholar telling you, listen, man, what happened after Babylon, the return to the land, ain't what it's talking about in Ezekiel. There's a greater restoration to come. This was a promise to bring the Jewish... Oh, here we go. Not Jewish. I don't like that. He's doing it again. No, not the Jewish people. To bring the Israelites. Jewish just represents the southern kingdom. To bring the Jewish people, no. To bring the Israelite people from among the nations, from a scattering much broader than the Babylonian captivity. Again, they're acknowledging that there was a scattering of the Israelites much broader than the Babylonian captivity. This is why there were churches all over Asia Minor. This is why this word had to be preached throughout all the nations. I will make them one nation in the land. This looked forward to a restoration much greater than that what happened in the days of Ezra, Zerubbabel, and Nehemiah. God would bring the Israelite people. I don't like them man trying to just use that word Jewish, because what they do is once they establish only using that word Jewish, then they can confuse the people into thinking that the Jews represent all Israel. No. Bring the Israelite people, representatives of all the 12 tribes. Revelations the 7th chapter, 12,000 men from each tribe plus the multitude as a whole back into the land as a whole. So what do you think is happening when Holy Jerusalem is coming down from heaven in Revelation 21? That's what's happening. Yahushua said in Matthew the 24th chapter that he's going to gather together his elect from the four winds. That's this prophecy. Yahushua is coming to fulfill prophecy that was written. It's not new prophecy. Everything Yahushua taught wasn't something new. It was prophecy. It was prophecy that had already been written. In the land on the mountains of Israel. This phrasing emphasizes that God made the promise regarding the literal land of Israel, which shows you the new heavens and the new earth isn't talking about a whole new earth and a whole new heavens. It's the same heavens and the same earth renewed. They shall no longer be two nations. Gathered together under one king, they would be established in the literal land of Israel under a literal king. So how did that happen in 1948 when they don't have a king? They've got a political system of which mirrors the Islamic and European political systems. So that's a cut. Volta and Hope acknowledge that this has not yet been fulfilled in history. Despite the prophet's words and various attempts, the divisions between North and South remained in the New Testament period. These divisions were clear enough in the animosity between the Jew and the Samaritan, which the Samaritans that were living there at the time weren't really that northern kingdom. Whether it's the children of Israel or the saints in the church today, which the saints are the children of Israel, and the church today isn't the Israelites, it's heathens. So it's got nothing to do with the Most High or the gospel. The Lord wants his people to be united. So you see how what they do is they start trying to separate what was happening in the New Testament to the prophecy of the Most High. So you end up with Israel and the church as two separate entities. No, the church is the congregation. The church is Israel. And the church is comprised of the real Israelites, the descendants of Jacob. This false church that they're running with in Christianity is not the real church that the Bible's talking about. And they don't follow the real gospel, because the real gospel is only for the descendants of Jacob. But you see where the confusion happens now is that how do you fit the church in with the prophecies when the prophecies got nothing to do with a church that they're talking about? It was all Israel. When the disciples said, Lord, without this time restore again the kingdom to Israel, he didn't say restore again the kingdom to the church. Wow. Behold, how good and how pleasant is it for brethren to dwell together in unity. Paul appealed to the believers in Corinth, which those believers were Israelites, to cultivate unity in the church. And he exhorted the Ephesian believers to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. That's because these were Israelites. And this modern day church isn't the same. It's a fraud. And that's why they're bucking up against the scriptures. They shall not defile themselves with their idols. These promises are typical of the passages that speak of the new covenant. Oh, wait, hold on. So they're telling you right here that Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, is also about the fulfillment of the promises of the new covenant. And guess who the subject matter is? The Israelites. Because the new covenant is for the Israelites and the Israelites only. But it wasn't just for the Jews. It was for all Israel. Oh. The promises of purity shall not defile, or cleansing will cleanse them, and relationship, they shall be my people and I will be their God, are often characteristic of the new covenant. Among other things, this shows that the unity promised here is a unity of purity and devotion to one king. It is not the unity of compromise and lack of standards. Provoked by their defiling and abominable acts, the Most High had abandoned his people. Now that he has purified them, he may return and normalize the covenant relationship with them. Oh, so what we're reading here is in agreement with what we teach, isn't it? It is. So what's Vocab Malone's problem? You got to go back to the drawing board, my friend, not us. We got it correct. With the Church of Berea, this is what the Church of Berea understood, and you don't. And they understood that Yahweh Shai was going to be the fulfiller of these things. Ezekiel 37:24-28. David, my servant, shall be a king over them. In Ezekiel 37:22, God said that there would be one king over the restored and unified Israel. We learn that the one king is David, as previously stated. So we know David is coming back. And if you can receive it, David is Peter, the head apostle. All right? Because the church that was in the scriptures is Israel, the descendants of Jacob. That's why all the disciples were Israelites. They shall dwell in the land that I have given to Jacob, my servants. To the clear and repetitive nature of these promises And that's why they had to come up with replacement theology, man. They had to make up replacement theology. The clear and repetitive nature of these promises of specific literal land cause wonder at the attempts to spiritualize such promises and deny that God has no future plan for ethnic Israel in their ancestral land. And there you go, ethnic Israel. Because what they want to do is they want to separate ethnic Israel from a fabricated Israel that they can place upon themselves. No, there is only ethnic Israel. And the church in the New Testament are ethnic Israelites. And the kingdom of heaven is going to be ruled by ethnic Israelites only. There is no other, there's nothing else other. The Israel of God are Israelites in the flesh too. Ethnic Israelites. That's why you hear vocab keep trying to use the word ethnic, because then they're trying to basically say that there's some other form of Israelite. There isn't. What are you doing, man? Some witchcraft? Nah. Some bait and switch thing? Nah. We sticking with the real McCoy, the authentic, according to the house of the fathers. Jacob means here the 12 tribes, and the land given to them was the whole of the land of Palestine. Consequently, the promise states that when they return, they are to possess the whole of the promised land. And we will. And that's what Yahushua is going to do. My servant David shall be their prince forever. That shows you the kingdom of heaven, everlasting life. This plain promise is most appropriate, seen not as the strange and imprecise reference to Yahushua the Hamashiach, but as part of the several promises that King David will once again rule over Israel in the millennial kingdom. See, and then so these goofy Christians teach something that there's a millennial kingdom and then there's the kingdom of heaven. No, David is going to rule over the nations in the kingdom of heaven, and Yahushua is going to be above him. He will be above David. Why then doth David then call him Lord? Yeah, because Yahushua is the king over all. That's why you got the 12 apostles with the head apostle. Remember, David was one of 12 kings. He was just the head. So the principal king. All the tribes had their heads. And then they all came together and said, agreed that David, the king of Judah, remember, David was king of Judah first. And then they agreed, okay, Judah, the king of Judah is going to be the king over all the tribes. So that's why you got the 12 apostles, you got the 12,000 heads in the book of Revelations, because there's 12,000 at the head of each tribe is going to be a king. But the head of the 12 of Judah, which is going to be David or Peter, right, is going to be the king over all. But then who's the head of the 12? Yahushua. It ain't hard. Okay. It said most commentators believe that this reference to David is really a reference to the Messiah. It's not. The son of David fulfilled in Hamashiach. They would say the same of the many other passages which speak of David's rule over Israel. Yet we can simply observe that if God did not intend David, he would not have said it. There is nothing in these texts themselves that demand that it is the Messiah and not David. So well done there. I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it shall be an everlasting covenant with them. God here seems to describe the new covenant as both a covenant of peace, as in Ezekiel 34:25 and Isaiah 54:10, and an everlasting covenant, as in Ezekiel 16:60 and Isaiah 55:3, and Hebrews 13:20. It is the covenant that brings the true shalom, the covenant that never ends. So again, the new covenant is for the nation of Israel, man. All right. The shalom represents much more than merely the absence of war. It denotes the state of harmony and equilibrium among all participants in the divine terrestrial. No, I know human. It represents the peace between the Most High and the Israelites. The consolation of Israel. Yeah? Man, I don't like this human talk. The Most High ain't about humanity. It's about Israel. I will establish, the Bible is not a humanitarian book. It's not a book about humanity. It's a book about the Israelites, the chosen people. I will establish them and multiply them. This promises are characteristic of the new covenant, as in Ezekiel 36:10-11, God's ultimate restoration of Israel would be on a large scale, not a small scale. The nations also will know. Then all nations will see that it was the Lord who made Israel holy. Oh, separated. Oh, all right. Israel shall not be reckoned among the nations. She would be set apart from all nations as God's special possession. No other nation would have the Lord dwelling in its sanctuary, uniquely in its midst, as would Israel. So what's these guys' problem? What is? Do you see what I'm saying here? Like, Why has vocab got a problem with us when even the Bible scholars admit this is what the scriptures is talking about? They just don't push that as the agenda on the pulpits. They push a false agenda on the pulpits, but they know what the scriptures say. That's why they have to say, well, the Bible changed, that God changed, that something changed. Fuck out of here, man. The Most High never changed, man. I will set my sanctuary in their midst forevermore. The promise of this sanctuary, and that's also in Revelation 21, showing you Ezekiel 37 and Revelation 21 go hand in hand. The promise of this sanctuary will be described in great detail in Ezekiel chapter 40 through 48. To Ezekiel and the Babylon exiles, no restoration could be complete without some kind of temple. Al-Azhar. The restoration of the temple is thus far more than simple a matter of repairing war damage. It is God's way for demonstrating that he is not dead and that Israel are still his people. The restoration of the sanctuary is the climax of all that this prophet had to say. Okay, which again, that goes back into Revelations 21. I noticed they didn't want to mention that. Yeah, that's the same thing spoken of in Revelations, the 21st chapter. Right? And I'm pretty sure if you go to the cross references, the scholars know, because the scholars should reference Ezekiel 37, or they're trying to hide it. Okay, so they reference Isaiah 66 and 1 there. See, they're trying to hide it. Let's see if they do it in another scripture. Yeah, they're trying to hide it, man. Yep, they definitely, see, they're trying to hide it. Right? Now, let me see something now. The tabernacle of God shall also be with them. Let's see, cross-reference. Right? There you go. Revelations 21. See? The scholars know. Revelations 21, verse 3 and 22. Right? Right? You see it there. And then sanctify Israel, sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. Cross-reference. See, they should have put Revelations 21 in there as well, because it says the same thing. My sanctuary shall be in the midst of them. But in the 27th verse, they do it properly. Let's see if they reference back on 21 and 3. Okay, they do. Ezekiel 37 and 27. Right? So Revelations 21 and Ezekiel 37 go hand in hand. And you see, they have to admit that it's all about the nation of Israel, the ethnic Israelites. All right? So it's job done, man. So why is vocab alone stressing us for when what we're teaching, even his more well-renowned scholars than him have to admit that, yeah, that's what it says. That's what the prophecy is talking about. Why is he stressing us? Because it doesn't go along with the status quo that they've become comfortable with. The lie that they preach on the pulpit, despite what is actually written in the prophecies, in the law and the prophets. They have to scream and feign their words, man, on the pulpit in order to bring that dead Christianity to life. We don't have to do that. We don't have to feign nothing. The wealth of the prophecies back up what we teach completely. So if that, I'm going to say shalom.